I got sick a little over 5 years ago. I got a stomach flu, basically, and I never got better. I ended up losing like 25% of my body weight. I just was in and out of the hospital, saw 7 different GI doctors. Nobody could tell me what was wrong. And I eventually found that cannabis controlled my symptoms. And now I moved to California 3 years ago, and using cannabis as medicine regularly, I've been able to manage those symptoms that I dealt with and manage my illness, which has never been diagnosed. I don't know what I suffer from, but I know that cannabis medicine works. And as I've changed my life to go along that natural wellness path that pharmaceuticals didn't bring me, I've found more and more benefits as I go. And as I found cannabis, there was no one to help me along this journey. So it's great to be able to share my knowledge with people that I had to find for myself.
And my name is Felicia Carbajal. I'm also a medical marijuana patient and a longtime activist. A little bit about me. 20 years ago, I like to joke that I was this baby lesbian who got to have friends for the first time who were part of my community, because I grew up in a very conservative Christian fundamentalist home and being gay was not an option. So when I was in college, gay got to be an option, so I got to have friends, and my friends were dying. Like, I got to meet young people who were sick and dying. So if you look at it in context, 94 through 96, I got to be around this whole new world in a different perspective. Fast forward, I injure myself. I'm a spinal cord injury survivor, and I utilize the medicine. But you know, one thing I am is I'm Latina, and it's one of those things where it's very indigenous to my people. I mean, my grandmother, like when we talk about man's first medicine and things like that, my grandmother had her curandero. So it was something that was part of our culture, where I knew that there was this bottle. It was a magical bottle. Like, nobody questioned my grandmother. Like, you question grandma, that was not an option. And she would give you something in a cotton ball, and it would magically work. So for me, the dare kid that I grew up being, it was very difficult for me to understand that this was like medicine until I had an event in 2010 called Coming Out of the Game Positive Medical Marijuana. And I'm a member of many communities. I was heavily involved in other states. So at this event, I met a doctor who had worked with a group to develop this particular kind of medicine, and I took it, and it kind of revolutionized just my life. I mean, I got off of Dianetics. So, and that was a little over 6 years ago. So for me, cannabis as medicine, I'm very honored to be able to be here with my work husband. Like, I finagled him into a lot of spaces just because we've realized that there aren't people that are sharing this information to people who are sick. They're sharing it in different spaces, but not necessarily to the people who need the information the most. So we're very thankful for Kim and for everybody who's here. We hope that we're able to share with you a lot more information.
So before we move along with the PowerPoint, can we ask how many people here are already using cannabis medicine?
The rub. Yeah,
okay.
Okay. It's okay. Whatever cannabis medicine, like whatever kind of cannabis are people using it?
Okay. Just to get an idea of where we are. So we'll maybe move a little quicker through some of the basic parts, and then we can have more discussion over some of the more advanced topics. So what we now understand about cannabis science is that it's always been a medicine. For the last 10,000 years, archaeological records support human beings having a very close relationship with cannabis. But no one ever knew why it worked. It was just one of the only medicines that worked. I mean, bloodletting seemed to have some effect, but cannabis was really having an effect. But in 1937, when cannabis became federally illegal for the first time. They created that tax stamp that if you had that tax stamp, you could buy, sell, carry, transport marijuana. They just never issued any of those tax stamps, so it became illegal. But at that time, when they passed that federal law, the AMA, the American Medical Association, had no say in those hearings and was against it, but no one asked them. And no one understood the science at that point to say, you know, this is an important medicine.
And the AMA at the same time didn't realize that marijuana was the cannabis plant that they had been working with and that they had been researching and been utilizing. Like, that kind of disconnect existed.
That it was really a stigma-based campaign to make it illegal in the first place that kind of snowballed out of control. So, fast forward almost 60 years after cannabis first became illegal in the United States, and an Israeli researcher who's been researching cannabis since the 1960s and is still alive found that there's a regulatory system in every human being called the endocannabinoid system. And this system controls eating, sleeping, your immune system, your memory formation and forgetting, and it's all controlled by two endogenous chemicals, cannabinoids, that are produced in the human brain and exist all the time. But some people, due to injury or infection or illness, don't produce enough of these endogenous cannabinoids. Some people don't produce enough based on genetics alone. And that's why cannabis is such an important medicine. Because in the same way you take vitamins to supplement chemicals in your body that you don't have enough of, amino acids, the fish oil, cannabis does the same thing for your endocannabinoid system. And it wasn't until my lifetime that we even realized that this existed. So this is a diagram of where the CB1 and the CB2 receptors are located in the brain. So the CB1 receptors are what is affected most by THC, and that has the most effect on pain and nausea. And then there's the CB2 receptors, which are throughout the body but clustered mostly in the gut and are associated more with the immune system. And you can see it's like a lock and key system that makes it all work. So if you're missing that key, you start to have a lot of problems. I think in a couple slides we discussed that. So one of the most important functions of the endocannabinoid system is controlling inflammation. And you can see in this diagram that kind of the way cannabis controls inflammation and the immune system is by suppressing the immune system. But it's not suppressing it in the same way that, you know, a steroid suppresses your immune system, that you get puffy and you get sick. It's suppressing it only when needed. So it's like if you get stung by a bee and you're allergic and you have to inject yourself with epinephrine so you don't have that allergic reaction, cannabis does the same thing to stressors and immune responses in the body. So where your body might start to have a reaction, like maybe your joint starts to swell up and then you put cream on it and it returns to normal. That's suppressing the inflammatory response, but it's suppressing it in a healthy way.
I mean, the handout that I just passed around, you can see where, the other slide that we showed you, where the receptors lie. So when you deal with certain inflammatory issues, you can see that in the brain and in the gut, like Andrew mentioned, are big highlighted spaces within that diagram. So
as I noted on here, there's actually a Journal of the American Medical Association study that showed that cannabis smokers, in general, just cannabis smokers, that they were able to study these proteins, had lower levels of a protein called interleukin-2, which causes inflammation, but had a higher level of interleukin-10, which controls inflammation. So it's just showing that chronic cannabis users would have lower inflammatory symptoms. And here's, I believe that, oh, this is actually a different citation from the Journal of Neuroimmune Pharmacology that shows that it has immunosuppressant effects were desirable and that it may have exceptional effects for autoimmune disorders. And these are all studies that you can find if anyone uses PubMed, which is the federal government's depository of all the federally funded studies. These are all available on there. So if you search for cannabis autoimmune, you'd be able to find all of these studies to read on your own. And this one is one of the kind of the breakthrough studies in medical marijuana that he talks about a condition. The scientist's name is Ethan Russo, and he now works at a cannabis pharmaceutical company. But he introduced the idea of clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. So what I was talking about earlier, that through injury, infection, or illness, your endocannabinoid system can become deficient, and then you have to start taking cannabis as a vitamin, basically. So he talks about IBS, he talks about, I believe, Lyme disease and even lupus as conditions that, if you think about what the endocannabinoid system does, and then you can imagine what would happen if it stopped working, you would basically describe the symptoms of Lyme disease, lupus, and IBS. And if you thought about chronic endocannabinoid deficiency in a pediatric case, someone who was maybe born with the genetics that predispose them to this condition, that might look a lot like autism spectrum disorders. And that's where so many of these chronic illnesses and diseases are coming from. And it's why, for many people, cannabis appears to be a miracle drug. Because the same way if someone had scurvy and you gave them a lemon, it would really look like a miracle when they ate that lemon, but there's no miracle happening. So this is a diagram of what you can imagine that the endocannabinoid system being deficient would look like. That it's basically a lake, and that as the lake gets lower, you start to have a problem. And that's where these symptoms start to present themselves.
And since everybody's body is continuously trying to go to homeostasis, especially with cannabis, like, you see why it's important to keep that lake kind of just always floating, like above the line, just so that you can continuously have that experience.
But because of how the endocannabinoid system works, the lake being overfilled, as it were, that your body has systems to get rid of it, that there's no overfilling. There's just, your body knows what it needs.
So, how to get the benefits. I know a lot of people in this room had said that they use different rubs, or had used rubs. I think that's what the majority of people had said. But there are other ways to be able to get the benefits on top of taking it topically. One of them is the oral dosing. So if you look at the concentrate that's sitting up there, that is...
I think I have some examples of things I can pass around, actually.
Perfect. And then we also have some other examples. So if you look at what he's about to pass around, and then he's going to pass around some of the bottles as well, that the medicine will start in this form, which is the concentrated form, which is the syringe. So essentially even the medicine that you're rubbing topically will be emulsified with this. This is just something that you can also take orally. So the same way that we were discussing earlier about not necessarily ingestion, but just talking about cannabis and the endocannabinoid system. When you take it orally, obviously you're helping to deal with all of the issues that are underlying within your body. So it's just another option for a lot of people. with that medicine being passed around, there are a lot of options now, so you don't have to necessarily be high. So you're able to take it in a dosed and measured way. Another option that I think got passed around is you can vaporize it. So say, for example, those of us who live in pain and who want to be able to have functionality, but would like to get that instant gratification, you can take a little puff off of a vapor, a pen, couple of puffs, and be able to get that without having to have all of that psychoactivity. And then, of course, all of us in the room love balms and salves. I know that I got my bruja, which they jokingly called me that, skills by being able to make a topical that helped me as a spinal cord injury survivor, just to be able to deal with the inflammation. I've had a few surgeries since to be able to just maintain, and that's typically one of my go-tos. And for whatever reason, it's really great and it works so amazingly that I'm blessed. But for a lot of people in the room who've had the misconceptions about using, like, taking it orally or eating it or taking it in a dosed, measured way, those of us who are ill, those of us who have autoimmune disorders, don't be so afraid. Like, these pills will allow you to get off of pharmaceuticals potentially, or titrate in a safe way so that you're using minimal amounts, like myself.
Like, it's all for an overall system. So by using, the more forms you use, the easier it is to get off of pharmaceuticals, because your body's getting it in every way it can. So I kind of like to use the pain management analogy, because that's something that a lot of people are used to. So, like, if you were in bad pain and you went to a pain management doctor for opioid therapy, they might give you an extended release medicine like Oxycontin. They'd give you an instant release medicine like Vicodin, and they might give you a cream, like a ketamine infused cream or something. So cannabis can replace all of those. So that syringe, that's the syringe, I can take this back. The syringe or the spray bottle or the tincture bottle that you see up there, which are basically the same thing. This is just the more concentrated version of the liquid. This would be your extended release, because when you take it internally, it's getting metabolized than when you smoke. So it's going to last longer, and instead of having an immediate up and then you're kind of high and then you come back down, it's more of a gentle, it takes an hour or even 2 or 3 hours to fully come on, but then you're feeling it, the medicinal effects, for 4 to even 8 or 10 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, this is what I use for my stomach, and I take 2, sometimes 3 doses a day, and that's an excellent baseline to just be able to use a lot less of other medication.
And that's a syringe, is
Mm-hmm.
it?
It comes in a syringe because it's a very viscous, sticky oil.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to be able to get a small enough amount, because I literally use a pinhead, maybe 2 or 3 pinheads.
When you say a pinhead, what amount is that?
Like a
Rice grain.
Oh, okay.
a rice grain.
Okay.
Like a small rice grain.
Okay.
Like not a jasmine rice, not a basmati rice. And you would know the difference because it's so potent. Like this
Wow.
syringe started with 10 grams. And I've been using this for probably 4 months.
Someone
2
asked
times a day.
here if you are able to tell them where they would get that from.
Yes.
Yes, it depends on what state you're in. But there should be options available, good medicinal collectives. If they tell us what state,
California.
California, that's a collective that has it, I know. And then depending on where they are, there would be other people. But it's a very inexpensive form of the medication. So in terms of cents per milligram,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing cheaper than this oil in the syringe. When you buy it in a form like a tincture bottle that's made into a liquid so that it's easier to dose, because like I've been taking this every day for over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I'm somewhat used to the effects. So I can if I accidentally take a little extra,
He has taken basmati rice grains and giant rice grains too, and you can tell the difference.
because sometimes when I'm sick, that's what I need. Like there's,
Okay.
I can feel the difference in my stomach when I take it. But a much lower dose, I might use this because this is too difficult to dose. But
Okay.
this is more expensive per milligram because someone else did the dosing for you. So
see.
this is your extended release, I mean. This is going to get you through 8 hours at a time. But then if, something happens and you have pain in the moment, you also have your Vicodin, your immediate release medicine, that you can take a puff anywhere because it's battery-powered vaporizer, and you get some immediate relief. Now, it's not going to last you 8 hours. It's going to last, 45 minutes or an hour, but it's immediate. It's going to take effect in 30 to 60 seconds.
What about the stories that I hear about the vapes not being healthy because it could cause pneumonia, or is it certain kinds, or what is...
People have had some issues with some vaporizer cartridges have fillers.
Okay.
So there's positives and negatives to every form of medication. Every form of cannabis medication, I mean. That these are disposable. They're often made of plastic or have plastic parts. So there's environmental impacts to this.
Okay.
Sometimes they break. These are kind of expensive. They're, $30 for this cartridge.
Oh, wow.
But if it breaks, you have to go replace it. It can be a pain.
Okay.
But you're using this instead of smoking flower, smoking
So
a
you
joint.
put oil, or what do you put in
Well,
there?
this is empty right now, but it would come full. So some companies fill it with 100% pure oil,
Oh.
and that's what you should look for. You want a cartridge that is pure oil, and if there's anything else, some companies add terpenes. Like
Okay.
the same thing that makes doTERRA oil smell like, lemon or lime. That's the terpenes, the D-limonene, the pinene,
Okay.
that makes it smell. And those terpenes have a medicinal effect. So terpenes are also a solvent. So sometimes they're mixed in. But some pens are made with vegetable glycerin or propylene glycol, and that potentially does have negative health effects. Which is debatable, but, better to be safe than sorry if you're already sick.
She asked, can popcorn lung happen with e-cigs?
Popcorn lung is something that's associated with those fillers that I mentioned, like propylene glycol, polyethylene glycol. So if you avoid pens that have a filler, then that's not something you have to worry about.
So you buy these cartridges with the oil already in them?
Correct.
Oh, okay. And so you use it and then you throw it away and buy another?
Exactly.
Okay.
And there are ones that you can continuously fill as well. Like those are
Yeah.
options that are available as well. The key to remember is those fillers and those things that they're adding. You want somebody who's using 100% cannabis oil because
you.
the negatives come from them adding those additives because essentially they're skipping out on you. They're
Right.
giving you medicine that's not good for you. Like that's the best way to put it. Like you want to give money to people who are going to give you the best option, not the cheapest option, because it's evident that sometimes the cheapest option and cutting those costs hurt our health.
Okay.
Not necessarily the most expensive cost being the better one. There's plenty, I would say some of the best are in the middle of the pack in terms of price.
Okay.
But you want lab tested and you want pure oil.
Right.
But how do you know the difference in all these dispensaries?
These cartridge makers are bigger companies so that they're, like if you go to a couple different dispensaries, you'll see some of the same brands. And then the brands have...
I feel as though this one doesn't because this is an older generation, but a lot of them come with a seal that allows you to know that they've been tested and all of their numbers on them. So this one's a little bit older, but I know for a fact that this brand and other brands like them will have a little sticker that gives you all of their testing results. And you should be able to ask the collective or whoever is operating the space, like, can I see some kind of lab results? Can I see something that just notes that this is in fact not just your friend who's made something that you guys are selling now, that this has actually been tested so that people can utilize it.
Yeah, because I read a story about these women, I think they were in Riverside, that they had a son that was always having seizures. And so they went to Vegas to get the cannabis. But the second time they went, it actually affected him in a bad way. It didn't, it wasn't the same format that they had gotten the first time.
Yeah, you
So
see,
that's
they
why
made
I
a
was
couple
wondering.
mistakes. Like, for some reason, they went to Nevada, which is illegal and also a bad idea because California has the best medicine. If anyone tells you to wait to get medicine, they're just trying to get your money. So,
And if people think that because the medicine or something is legal in a different state or even recreational, it's never legal for you to give it to your kids. Like, especially if your children aren't 18, just because in Colorado it's legal, it's not legal to share it with your children. It's legal for you to use it, not for you to share it with them.
so in California, a child with a medical recommendation can use it, but if they're using lab-tested medicine that shows that you're not just giving your child 3 drops, but you know that this 3 drops has 10 milligrams in it, and if next time the lab results show that it was half as strong, we'd give him 6 drops because that's still 10 milligrams. So with the lab tests, you avoid those issues. That even, like something like this, and I guess this is a good way to segment to
powder?
this. No, I'll take a dose so everyone can see what it looks like, and it takes an hour to take effect, so you won't even know. But it's here. I'll just walk around. You can see it's kind of like
It's the oil.
yeah, like it's very thick. Like
Okay.
it'll come out, and that little piece is about what I would take.
So you just orally take it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you just like
Wow.
your tongue or something?
Yep.
Like sublingual?
Mm-hmm.
Take that before hours before
It
go to
tastes
sleep?
bad, so you don't even have to sublingual. Like I just,
resident?
Okay.
and then just swallow like a pill, and
Okay.
then that's it.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
like a
Oh, you
part
didn't
of
get
the
you didn't take any for the camera. That would have been the better taste.
Now he has to take 2.
Super small. The camera can see too.
Like I'll give one more.
So you can see it's a very viscous oil that's very sticky. I won't touch that. Like if you put it on the back of your fingernail, you could lick it off. But as you get used to the process, it's easy enough to just
Wow.
and
So
just
it's
swallow
almost like
it.
a resident type or something?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a concentrated form of the cannabis.
Yeah. And I moved on to
Well, let's go this one
I've
just
seen
really
something like
quickly,
that on
we're just gonna do this, just go over this really quickly because we had passed these around just so that everybody understands that there are a few options that are available when we talk about CBD and THC. Like
it does
And-
taste bad.
Andrew Tate, well, it's medicine. It's supposed to taste bad, right? Like it's not supposed to taste that great. That he takes a variety of medicine. So he'll take something that's more like a 1-to-1, which is equal parts CBD and THC. And like him, we usually end up going on that side of the scale a little bit more when it comes to our pain. But we'll go on this side of the scale when it deals with our anxiety. So this is more a slide for everybody to realize they can use cannabis as a tool so that it allows you to figure out the titration that works best for you as an individual. So say, for example, taking something really concentrated doesn't necessarily work for you, or even something that has equal parts because you say even after you took that small amount that it made you feel loopy or high.
Because for a lot of people, that is the red one is strong enough.
Is that good for insomnia?
Mm-hmm. There's ones that are even add terpenes that are sleep inducing, but that is good for insomnia.
Okay.
But then as you move along, like it would be good if you feel that one's too heavy and you just want inflammatory relief during the day, then maybe the green one would be right for you, or even the blue one. But by the time you get all the way to the blue, it's not going to help your pain at all. Like, at all. You'll be surprised how little it helps your pain, and how much it still helps everything else. So, this is something that we wanted to address because, like, just like my condition and Felicia's condition, as I understand it anyway, lupus is a chronic condition, and you can manage it, but nobody's promising a cure. And we're not promising a cure either.
Just some relief.
Exactly. And maybe remission.
Quality of life.
Yeah.
Remission, like, you can find stories online that people say, I achieved remission. Like, I don't deal with those symptoms anymore. But some people can find that in some varying levels of success. But because this is something that you are taking to manage, it should be as inexpensive as possible. Like, you want this to be a cost-effective part of your wellness plan. And that's why I specifically address this oil, because it's the cheapest option, and it's also something that, depending on the space you have at home, it's something you can make at home. So, I mean, I encourage people to grow for themselves, like, especially if you have outdoor space that you can do it, because the quality that you produce is not necessarily of the utmost importance.
But we need to get a legal recommendation for that too.
Yes,
right?
you absolutely need a legal recommendation. But anyone in this room, including you, sir, but I don't remember your name.
Rick.
Rick, you would even qualify for a recommendation as a caregiver for Rosemary. So you don't have to tell the doctor you're sick. You just have to tell them your wife is sick. I mean, you could. I'm sure you have something that would qualify you as well. But I'm just saying that everyone qualifies.
Is this to grow what?
It would be to grow 6 to 12 plants, depending exactly how big they are and what stage they are,
Really?
what
In the
county.
state of California?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have one. I and my husband have one, which we never use, but to grow 99 plants.
So
Wow.
some doctors will write you a rec to grow 99 plants, and the usefulness of that is debatable. Because really, any one of you could grow
Well, we
90.
haven't even grown one, so.
You could grow 99 with your regular rec. And in some counties, they look the other way. And if you're doing it inside, they'll usually look the other way. But in
So
terms
you
of
start inside and then move it outside, you said?
yeah, it's easier to just either do it one place or the other. Because if you start them inside, they're kind of weak.
At my house, we got kind of like some outside, some inside, some in this back room.
That's the way to do
It's
it.
just flowering over there. He has a clone over here. He has all. I'm like, where my card at?
And that's the way to do it.
So, but he had,
And for a lot
he
of
has my
us
care-
that
he's
are
my
sick,
caregiver.
because there are really great options on the market, but they don't always hit that price point for those of us that need to use it on a continuous basis. So having those other options and thinking, like, I don't have a green thumb. My wife and I did grow flower, and it was not a cost-effective thing for us to do. Like, but I mean, at the same time, like, I think if it wasn't cost effective and we had a larger space that was made available and I had a bigger opportunity to play, we would have stood doing that, just because she did really grow some amazing stuff. Like, I was just like, whoa.
It's not that hard to grow the quality that you might buy of flowers in the dispensary.
So where would you start? With the seeds and to get
Well, now there are clones, so you would
Either seeds or clones, depending on if you're starting inside or out. And you said you have a green thumb.
Yes, I do.
So for
I can
you,
make anything come back alive. Ask my daughter.
you should start with seeds, because that'll give you better plants. But clones are the easiest, because someone has done the hardest part of the work for you.
If you need
But that means you're going to have to research, because there's a process that you have to go through from the seedling as well. So just, Amazon. Google is an amazing tool to be able to tell you to just what to research to be able to get that good book. So that it'll help you at least pick your seeds, because part of the reality and one of the reasons why Andrew is pushing for growing is because we do have that option here. Whereas a lot of states don't have the capability and the options, and people as patients aren't given that provision in particular, that we should take advantage of it.
I know it's on the ballot for this year to be passed, the marijuana law here in California.
Well, but you won't be able to grow whatever you want to grow with legalization, but yes.
Well, you will. You'd be able to grow 6 plants, but to grow more than
One
6.
should be efficient, too.
Well,
No.
how long
No,
it takes
6
to
probably.
process it.
Because you'll need some variety. Because just
Oh,
like
okay.
these
Different
ratios,
kinds.
you might not want to drink water all the time. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you want
Drink
some
something.
variety.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which one did you want to take a picture of?
That one, right there. I got it.
So, what I was saying about growing outdoors, you basically can't go wrong, because even if your quality ends up not the best, when you're making a concentrate like this, you're using, in this case, alcohol, like high-proof alcohol, to wash all the medicine off of the plant material. So you end up with just the good part, and you can make this with outdoor material, less than $10 a gram. And a gram is going to last you, eating it, a week at least. If you made balm, like rub out of this, 1 gram would make an entire vat of coconut oil. 1 gram of this would make multiple ounces of liquid tincture. So it goes a long way. Like you said, 1 plant would make probably 1 nice size outdoor plant should make 100 grams of oil at least. So, in a season, if you did a couple of each kind of plant, that should produce you enough medicine for the year for a minimal investment of time and money. And then you're in control. You know that no one used pesticides on your medicine. You know that no one did anything that you wouldn't feel comfortable with. And then you can still take this, send it into a lab, and they'll give you the exact amounts of THC and CBD, and then you can do the math at home. You can even make yourself capsules at home that this capsule has 50 milligrams of CBD. And it'll be, sure, you could buy capsules at the store for $10 a piece, maybe $5 a piece. Or you could make them at home for 50 cents. It will take time, but it will save your money.
And if you can't grow, he just gave you the formula. You can buy the concentrate at arguably a much more discounted price and just formulate it however you want to formulate it. So
Yeah.
if you want capsules, if you want to make yourself extract, if you want to make yourself topicals, all of those resources are available by just getting something like that.
And even in the store, this is only going to cost $30 to $50 a gram. So a 3 to 5, even 10-fold increase of what it costs to make growing your own, but still cheaper than buying every branded product individually. So I just want to empower you to do some of it for yourself, because there's no reason to give away your power like that. So now, this was one last study that they showed. They've seen that people who are using medical marijuana, 90% reported increase in quality of life. It was something like 85% recorded a decrease on 1 or more of their pharmaceuticals. And then in other studies, they've shown 60% of people decrease or stop opioid prescriptions. People choose to stop drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, using illegal drugs. So now we wanted to talk a little more about the differences between medical and recreational, because props for they're calling it legalization of marijuana. Well, I think they're calling it the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, but it will be on the California ballot this November. So it's an issue that, as medical patients, we're a little bit more of a stakeholder than the average person on the street, because there's important differences to medical and recreational. And like you mentioned, you'd still be able to grow 6 plants at home under Prop 64, but 6 would be a hard limit. Like, as a medical patient, that's sick. There's no real limit. Like, the current limit right now for a medical patient is as much as you need to be able to care for your condition. So if that means 99 plants is what it takes for you to be able to grow enough medicine to keep yourself well, your doctor just has to come to court and defend that. That wouldn't change under Prop 64. You would just have to keep getting that medical recommendation. But in other states that have legalized, we've seen problems with the medical program. Like, not being able to grow for yourself at home, but being able to go to a store and have enough selection of non-psychoactive CBD products, CBD-rich products, all along that spectrum that we showed you, the different colors. Like, those are very medicinal, but they're not necessarily very good profit makers. So when recreational comes and it's a lot more regulated, I guess we can put it this way, Prohibition ended 80 years ago, but craft beer only became popular like a couple years ago. It took us a long time of only having Miller and Bud before anybody decided that they wanted anything more. So now, if you flew to Denver and you walked into a recreational dispensary, you're gonna see maybe 10 different kinds of flower and some pens like this, but you're not gonna see things like this, the sprays. You're not gonna see the capsules. You're not even gonna see these syringes with the very medicinal oil, because I told you this is the cheapest per milligram. It also means it has the least profit per milligram.
So people are just making them at home themselves, or?
People have to, they can't even buy this. Yes, they have to make it themselves at home.
Oh, okay.
But not even necessarily with the store-bought flour, because the material that they're growing, they're having more issues with pesticide use, because it's become quantity over quality. And as California is a 5 times bigger market than Colorado, I don't want to say we expect it to happen, but I personally won't be surprised, because to tell you a little dirty industry secret, one of the reasons you don't see dispensaries getting lab tests just by choice and having everything on the shelves tested is because if they did, you would refuse to buy a lot of the stuff. Because even though you might not be able to pronounce the names of the pesticides, they're pretty scary sounding names, like paclobutrazole. It doesn't sound like something that would go in a natural medicine, and you'd see a lot of it.
And it doesn't go into natural medicine. As you said, it goes into a recreational product.
It shouldn't even go into a regular, because that'll cause cancer.
She asked if you did start with a clone, with each harvest, does it get more organic?
With a clone, you actually have to take a new clone for every harvest. So who's providing you the clones.
Okay.
So if they're growing their clones organically, then it stays the same harvest to harvest.
But if she finds something that she likes, make one of them a mother, so that you can continuously just pluck off of it. So if you look at it in terms of, while you're trying to select what genetic works best for you, like, but keep in mind, you're only allowed, like in an adult use marketplace, you're only allowed 6. So if you keep one as a